Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Doorstep History,
which once again is coming from the Coffin Works in Birmingham's Jewellery Quarter.
First today.
Now, many people who travel through West Brom will recognise this clock, but not many people now will recognise the name that goes along with it, Reuben Farley. So we've taken time out to find out a bit more.
Thousands of people walk past this monument in West Bromwich at the Handsworth end of the High Street every day, most little realising, or not having time to realise, that it has strong connections with the history of the town. At the opposite end of the once Golden Mile, they may well see this clock tower at Carter's Green, but few will know that it too is connected to a man who became known as the Man of West Bromwich. That man was Reuben Farley, and he is to become the first mayor of the town, and indeed he was 5 times the mayor in his career. Now 2 local historians have compiled a book which aims to raise the profile of one of the most famous residents of West Bromwich.
In 1898, Reuben did some articles for the local press on what he thought was improvements in West Bromwich during Queen Victoria's reign. And they were quite interesting comments, weren't they?
Yes.
So he mentioned how the population had trebled during that time, and I thought I bet 90% of the population of West Bromwich actually knew him, or knew his name certainly. I don't know what the population is today, but I would bet 10% don't know the name Reuben Farley, and that's what we've tried to do, is do a tribute to our first and 5 times mayor. He was a very important Victorian industrialist, very important to West Bromwich. It's a time when a mayor actually funded a lot of things from his own pocket, not like today. And when the job for mayor cropped up, he was the first person people thought of.
The book was launched at All Saints, the parish church of West Bromwich, and it attracted quite a crowd of people, all eager to find out more about Farley. So how did the book come about?
From some previous research I'd done about West Bromwich Town Hall, and through that research I discovered the name of Farley, and that he was mayor of the town, and things sort of developed from there really. And then I discovered that Pauline was doing some research into the Farley name, weren't you? And I was doing my own research, so we decided to get together, and the book is the result.
His father was a mining engineer, and he was one of 10 children. He didn't marry until he was in his 40s. He lived at home with his mother at Great Bridge. Could have afforded to move somewhere grander, but didn't. He stayed at home with his mother, and then he married 3 times within the space of 20 years. His first 2 wives sadly died, and it was with his 3rd wife that he had children, 5 children. And there was quite a big age difference between him and his wife. And when he died, she moved away and the family moved away, so we didn't have any continuum like you do with the Salters or the Kendricks of West Brom.
A number of scenes from Reuben's civic career were recreated at the book launch.
In 1897, the Farley Clock Tower was built as a memorial of Alderman Farley's services and generosity to the town. At the opening ceremony, it fell to me as mayor to accept the clock tower on behalf of the town.
Now, almost 120 years later, and the clock is still standing. So what do passers-by know about the clock? And is Pauline's theory that few people know about Farley true? Well, here's a cross-section of views.
I ain't got a clue. I've been round here 43 years. I ain't got a clue. I mean, my kids are 8 and 7. But that's the first time I've heard. No, nothing at all.
First time you've ever heard the name mentioned?
Yeah.
Cool then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
It's a Farley Tower, isn't it?
It's called Farley Tower.
It's like the Big Ben, but with the West Brom one.
It's the Big Ben.
Yeah, but the West Brom one.
It's named after a man called Farley.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you knew that. Yeah, do you know anything about Farley?
Yeah, we need to park around the corner. Our school, we've got a house called after Farley. We got to Doorstep Academy.
What do you think about this tower?
Well, that's been there since I was a baby.
Do you know what it is?
No.
No?
Well, it's a clock tower, right?
It's a clock tower, yeah, but do you know who it's named after?
No.
A man called Reuben Farley. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
No, because he was put up in his honour because he was the first mayor of West Bromwich.
Oh, I don't know about. But I know there used to be a picture there, see, called the tower.
One building depicted on the clock is familiar to many people. It's Oak House.
See, he purchased that with the intention of possibly living there, but it was considered not suitable for a family with 5 children. So he donated it to the town as a museum, and when they knew it needed quite a lot of money for restoration, he funded that himself as well. And we've still thankfully got Oak House today.
That's right, yeah.
Which has recently been restored. Well, the barns have been restored and well worth a visit.
This gold-plated illuminated address, now in Sandwell Library, was presented to Farley by workers at his Summit Foundry when he became mayor in 1882. In 1895, he was given the freedom of the borough and presented with his casket containing the Freedom Scroll. The casket was made using oak taken from a beam at Oak House. And it's an impressive portrait, isn't it, on the cover of your book?
It was really because the council was so grateful for what Reuben Farley had done for the town, and they paid for this oil painting, and it now hangs, I believe, on the staircase, doesn't it, at Inglestree Hall.
In Birmingham, Louisa Ryland was a big benefactor, and she gave the city Cannon Hill Park, and in a way I think Reuben Farley was pretty much a similar kind of person, wasn't he? This resulted in Dartmouth Park.
That's right. Well, he always acknowledged where he got his ideas from, didn't he? You know, and it was seeing that in the Birmingham newspaper that he decided that it would be really good if he could persuade the Earl of Dartmouth to release some land at Sandwell Hall or Sandwell Estate to make a park for the people of West Bromwich. And they met and discussed it, and he agreed to it. And then at a later date, he approached the Earl of Dartmouth for a few more acres of land for a boating pool, and that is Dartmouth Park that we have today.
We want to try and get people interested in the history of West Brom. We feel it's important, and that's what the book's about. I hope people enjoy it.
Yes, I do.
Now it's remarkable that this winter has been one of the mildest on record, a huge contrast with the bad winter of, say, 1963.
Yeah, that was when we were living at Wootton Wowing in a caravan, and it was a horrendous winter, it really was. Living in a caravan has its unique disadvantages. A colour gas bottle, all guaranteed to run out when you hadn't wet coal. Cold water, taps frozen. Want to go to a toilet? Walk down to Wootton Hall. No indoor toilets. It was funny, but not very funny at the time of the Plymouth game, because Albion were due to play Plymouth, and Plymouth's a lovely city to go to, but not in the depths of winter. What actually happened was, on the Friday it was, they cancelled every game in the cup apart from Plymouth and Albion. And that was in doubt. So what are we going to do? How do we get there? Well, we've got to go, because it's Albion versus Plymouth. British Railway cancelled all the trains, which was popular means of transport then to places like Plymouth. So how can I get to Plymouth? And I suddenly remembered the Albury branch of the supporters club had got 2 coaches running. Anyhow, we started off, and it was horrendous. The snow was literally all along the road there was, so there's no motorways. It was a case of struggle on the best way you can. We had to stop 2 or 3 times. The drive was marvellous. We were stopped on the 3rd time, I think it was, by snow, and there was some shovels in the back of the coach. So there we supported actually digging the ruddy coach out to carry on. We got there at 8 o'clock in the morning. We made it. It was worth it. We won. But it couldn't happen these days because the game would have been called off.
Hello, my name is Oliver and I'm here at the South Staffordshire Museum to find out more about World War II. We went to the museum with our school because we have been doing about World War II. The lady showed us some great artifacts and we were able to look at all the sorts of things. If you didn't know anything about the war before you went there, you'd been fascinated by everything and found it really good. But we had spent a long time doing the war at school, so we had already seen most of the things, and so we answered almost every question that she asked us.
I'm a volunteer in the education team at the Staffordshire Regiment Museum. We actually take parties of school children and actually other adult groups as well. We'll take all sorts of groups of visitors around and we get involved in other events that we have, for example, a night in the trenches or Christmas in the trenches when we have a carol service. And our aim is to try and demonstrate to people the role of the soldier throughout history, and particularly we concentrate with school groups and quite often with visitors to our trench on the First World War and also on the Second World War. We're especially fortunate to have a recreated First World War trench, both a British section and a small German section, so we are able to take people through that and give them an idea of what trench life was like for the Tommy. Looking at a regimental aid post and an officer's dugout, and we're able to we have a tunnel, so people are actually able to go underground, so that we can give people an experience of the tunnelling war, which is not very well known, and that's our main aim really, is just to make sure that the memory of all the soldiers is not forgotten, and that we're able to give people an experience of a little bit of living history. It's called the bolt, right? Push the bolt forward like that. So there's 2 of these, there's 5 in each one, so how many rounds am I going to put in the rifle?
10.
10, I'm going to put 10 rounds in the rifle. Push them down there. And if you're a good soldier, you can do that really fast and you can aim at the same time, which I can't. Rifle. Now lots and lots of these rifles were made in Birmingham. Did you hear anything when you were doing your studies about the Birmingham Small Arms Company, the BSA?
We hadn't been able to handle the guns before, so that was really exciting, but some people got a bit scared, but I didn't.
Airborne here.
Some of the guns were really heavy, and it must have been difficult for soldiers who had to use them.
My sleeve is too big.
We all enjoyed using the uniforms. This was great fun, and we went on a parade. Back inside we found about rationing and toured the museum looking at the exhibits. We liked looking at the museum because of all the models, and the soldiers must have been a lot of strength to survive the war.
Okay.
And on the rifle, there's sort of a silencer.
One thing we couldn't do at school was going to a real shelter.
I'd take something that's
Showcase.
Oh, am I?
At the end you've got a bed. Now do you see that bit there where the light's coming through, just on the end there?
Yeah.
Sorry. That's an escape hatch. So that if there was debris in front of the door and you couldn't get out there, you could try and crawl out through that little escape hatch. And you bring all those things down here that you talked about. You might have little bunk beds, and we've got a table there so you can put your little sandwiches and you can play with your puzzles and your teddy.
You have a bucket in the corner so you can go to the toilet, because obviously you can't go out during the raid, so you want somewhere to have a wee, don't you? So you've got a little bucket in the corner, and you'd stay here maybe for 13 hours, 12 hours, you might be stuck down here. Some people only came down when there was a raid. Some people decided that they preferred to come down the shelter anyway, whether there was a raid or not. And you've done your job all day, and then in the evenings and in the weekends you have to do duty in the Home Guard. So you're sent out here for several hours to man a machine gun in one of these posts, or you're manning a gun in the pillbox. So you're sent out here on top of all your other work, and then you go home when you've done all this, and you get up the next day and you go back and do your job. So people must have been very, very tired, mustn't they, doing all this work. So these were defending the country.
Well, I like the trip to the museum because we gone with these special people that show us around.
I liked best holding the guns and seeing what it was like to have rationing available.
I learned a lot new more things about World War II, and I really enjoyed the Anderson shelters because all 14 people can fit.
And we looked at a barn. We like the Anderson shelters because when you went in, you've never really been in an Anderson shelter before, and you got to see what it looks like.
And you can't really imagine sleeping in there.
Yeah, because it's just benches.
I liked where we could use the wear on the uniforms and hold the rifles and all those guns.
I liked rationing, and I liked all the food.
We got to wear hats and uniform, and we went outside to look outside.
I loved all the statues that there were, and all the comments about them.
And like to explore around and go under the trenches.
And the best part was when we would get to pass the rifles around.
We had a really great time. I think I enjoyed it. It was a really great museum to visit.
Message to the pigeon's foot and send it back to their...
So it's great to see youngsters there getting involved, isn't it, with history. And talking of history, history was made in Langley, wasn't it, recently?
Yeah, and Norman went along to Langley to find out about a local history group who was celebrating 20 years anniversary. So you went along to get a slice of the action, didn't you, Norman?
It was a piece of cake. They've certainly got the right ingredients to make a successful history group, as over 60 people attended this anniversary meeting. Over the years, they've produced some impressive publications and have held some good meetings.
It started in 1996 at Langley Library when the powers that be stopped them having a coffee morning there. So Susie Drew, who was the librarian there, decided they could still have a coffee morning if they gave it greater purpose. So she started Langley Local History Society. That was its name right from the beginning, and the idea was that people would record their reminiscences of living in Langley over the 20th century. And so they did that. Within a year they produced their first little booklet, quite a modest little thing, but that was so popular that they then had to they got so many other reminiscences in that they had another book out, a more detailed one, in the next year. And from that, the society quietly grew in the library until eventually we got so many members there wasn't room in the library for us. So we moved out to the church hall at Whalley Institutional Church in Pound Road. and we still meet there now, although the site's now the Salvation Army site. And we've just grown in strength now, so we have a membership of about 85 or so of us, and we get 60 some odd people to most of our meetings, which are still held monthly. We've got a website. It's a website for, there are 3 local history societies in different bits. There's an Oldbury one, an Old Warley one, and ours. And we have a website which covers all of those, called thehistoryofoldbury.co.uk. And if you go on there, if you just Google History of Oldbury, you'll get all the details of it. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Neither am I'm sure you'll get help from somewhere.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for on this week's edition of Doorstep History, but we hope you'll join us again next week.
Goodbye and thanks for watching.